There is power behind every story we carry within. Every tragedy, no, yes, laugh, victory. And every testimony that is incubated within our souls have power. The power to transform, from tragedy to crown, from obstacle to opportunity. And all the moments in between make us wiser. Watch Candid Conversations with Charisa for impactful, unheard moments that will certainly spark your power and inner truth to shift, heal, and restore your life. It's time to get real, uncover, unlock, unpack, set free, and increase the dialogue to change a life. We all start somewhere and end in places of destiny. Get ready for the long-awaited Candid Conversations with Charisa.
Hey family, Candid Conversations with Charisa is back and we are about to be lit. The conversation is continuing. We are continuing to be raw, deep, real, and transparent and transformational. We are going to start off this season talking about love and marriage, dedicated to all of my married couples and those aspiring to be married. Then we're going to get into dating and sex for all my single couples. And then we are going to talk about forgiveness, because forgiveness is not about the other person. It is for you. We're going to talk about isolation. We're going to talk about the benefits of sometimes being alone. We're going to talk about putting you first and why that is so much more important for you to start influencing others. Then we're going to talk about how you are the creator of all of your creation, needing no permission to do what you want to do and can do. Then I am going to give you a sneak peek and follow up on me actually going home, where I was able to get the freedom that I need. So pull up a chair. Every Thursday, we're going to be here on YouTube watching Candid Conversation with Charisa, a show that was created just for you. So for the last couple of weeks, we have dedicated this season to love and marriage. And we've had talks with couples and people who are interested in being married, but most of all, people who have been married from a day to 30, 40, 50 years. And they have given some very good, sound advice and recommendations to people that are currently married and people that are looking to get married. And so I wanted to dedicate this episode to singles who are dating. Yes. Singles who are dating, they're not married yet, they're trying to figure it out, because we realize we married and we're still trying to figure it out. So I want to speak to those people. And I wanted to kind of give a little bit of conclusion, a little bit of insight and value to the single people, and dedicate this to dating and sex, or sex and dating. When I had asked a group of people, what do you want to hear me talk about? And that was the consensus. Talk about dating and sex. And these were grown people who was 40, someone was 24. So people are still struggling with finding a mate and someone that they can spend the rest of their life with. It's definitely a struggle. And I think one of the things that they talked about that's the issue is, especially for women, there's so many women that are dating but don't understand that, hey, you can have options without opening your legs. You can keep your options open, but keep your legs closed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know about that one.
No?
I'm not. Okay, let's back up. Let's be clear. I'm not saying go spread them. What I am saying is, I think you're drawing a parallel, right? To say that I can date many people, not have sex, right? Which is true to some degree. But if we are 100% honest, if we keep it a buck, sex is a big part of dating. It's a big part, right? So it'd be great if we were all in Genesis chapter 2, before the fall, if we were all married and, remember this, God created sex. It is good. It's good.
In its right.
It's meant to be enjoyed within the confines of marriage. In the
confinements of what it should be, yes.
Right.
So like you said, when you and I were having a conversation off, you said they should stop having babies for men that are not their husbands.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing. Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm glad you put it that way, because you're actually saying, there are women who are keeping their options open and keeping their legs open. Okay, fine. That's the reality, and that's where we are now. It doesn't make it right, but that's fine if you want to do that. But stop having children with men that aren't their husbands, which means that we're still encouraging married first.
Oh, absolutely. There are a few things that happen, right? And so I think the idea, so when I say stop having children by men who aren't your husband, is because we see the societal effects of single parenthood, right? We see that the dropout rate and the drug abuse rate, the runaway rate, like incarceration rate, like we see all these things. And so we know that many of these things are a direct result of fatherless homes. So I also happen to think that giving a man the honor of becoming a father is the highest honor you should bestow on a man, and you're freely giving it away. And so I think oftentimes a lot of onus, a lot of responsibility is put on the man. I think it's unjust. I think it's unfair, and here's why. They will say, well, look at this man out here, and he has all these children, but all these different women. Okay, Future, the rapper, right? Now I don't know how many baby mamas he got now, 9 or 10. I don't know how many he got. Whatever. So what we have here is a sexually irresponsible man, right? So we have one sexually irresponsible man, but you now have 9 sexually irresponsible women.
Exactly.
Because anyone after the first one knew that he don't take care of his kids. So why did 9 other women lay with him and have babies? Because we say that having a baby now ain't no big deal. Ain't no big deal. But it's the biggest stinking deal in the world. So what I think when we start talking about sex within the confines of dating, you have to first define what we're doing. And I think a lot of times people don't really talk about what they're doing. Let me change that. I don't think that they don't talk about what they're doing. I think that many times women don't listen to what the guy said. If that guy tells you, oh, we just kicking it, we having a good time. Oh, what are we? You know what? We're good. We good. We cool. We kicking it. That's what he mean.
Well, but I also think on that same line, I think the priorities of the talk are mixed up. Okay. So I'm not saying don't have the sex talk and don't have the love talk, but they shouldn't come before the purpose talk and the vision talk. Because if you have that purpose talk first, what are we doing? Where are we going? And what do you want? Then that'll help with you having the talk or not having the talk after that. If you don't have that talk of vision, which is, what do we want from this? Or all I want is this. All the purpose I have in being with you is to have sex, and that's it. That's the purpose talk.
No doubt. So
now it's up to the woman or the man to say, that's all you want, then make a decision. Someone is either making bad decisions or not strong enough or have the capacity enough to actually say no and be okay with it. Now, I don't know if it's because you have, especially women, who don't want to say no or don't want to turn down a man with the thought that if I turn down this one who actually wants me, maybe there may not be another. And even that is an insecurity.
But I think that depends on the age bracket, right? Because that struggle isn't the 20-year-old girl struggle. Because a 20-year-old girl got 15 dudes in line waiting. That struggle about, I don't know if there's somebody else in line waiting, that happens to a woman in her late 30s, early 40s. Because mentally she starts to think, man, my options are running out. 20-year-old ain't got that thought.
Which is why I'm saying that keep your options open, but keep your legs closed. It's more so for that 20-year-old and 25-year-old because their options are many. Their options are many, therefore their options are great. Date around, make sure you date around so you can figure out what you want and what you don't want and you get to pick. But you don't have to date around and also the same time you're dating, the same time you're talking, you're also having a sex talk, because you and I talk about this mileage that increase for women. That doesn't necessarily increase for men. And as you get older And I'm beginning to agree to some extent.
What?
Shush.
You in agreement?
Shush.
But
I'm beginning to agree that, and I think
must be because of Dr. King's birthday. You agree with me? January 15th, February 15th. I don't know what today's date is.
Focus. So I think one of the things is, and it's not even so much. How can I put this? I got to be careful when I say things around you because you'll go left real quick. And Candid Conversations can't afford your leftness today. But
you think about that statement. So, and here's, so we talk about high mileage, right? And it's, sometimes we can just draw analogies, right? And so I say, other than wine, because that's the typical answer, but it's not being used. What product increases in value with time and usage? None.
Land.
I said usage.
Home.
So here's the thing. I got old school, right? You know I don't ever drive my car? So old school for you young folks. So I got a 70 Monte Carlo. And you get on me all the time. You don't never drive it. Why don't we take it out? It's designed. You know why? Because I want to keep the value high. So I keep the miles low. If, I don't care how good it looks, how vintage it is, if I am driving this car and putting more and more miles on it, there's going to come a point where this car is no longer mine. I'm going to sell it. And I can't get top price for something with high miles on it. And so the idea when we talk about keeping your options open but your legs closed is you don't want to have a lot of mileage. Meaning, especially if there's a hope that you're going to get married.
And
right?
there is still hope.
Because then there are some new things that you want to experience. And I'm since we just keep it in the buck here, right? I'm gonna tell you that the probably the two greatest downfalls to multiple sexual partners, especially for a man, and pornography. The downfalls are the things that you see. You eventually want someone to play that fantasy out for you. So now you're putting these unrealistic expectations on your wife based on some things that you saw in some freak nasty movie. Or if you've experienced life and now you've had multiple partners, you done done some things. You done seen some things. That's good because you want to know how things function and so forth and so on. But now you're bringing all of those other experiences with those partners into the bedroom. And now when you and your wife or you and your husband are doing the things, you're saying, man, you may not say it out loud, but subconsciously, man, John used to do the way Tyrone used to hit. Like, so now you're actually probably comparing partners right now. And I think that becomes a horrible thing. Because now, again, you're putting expectations on someone for her to fulfill what someone else did.
And I think one of the couples, in a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the Love and Marriage series, they brought that up in the form of soul ties. And how soul ties can be one of the strongest ties. But as soon as you start tying yourself to everyone, from the time you go from Joe to John to Derek to Desmond
right
to
now she can
everybody.
Throw a Jane in there too.
Nowadays, exactly, they're going both ways. So now you're taking these people with you. You're taking these memories. Some of you taking regrets. Some you're taking traumas. Some you're taking calamity. And you're like, man, why can't I get it right? And then why am I finally with someone that loves me, someone that wants me, someone that I can see myself with? And then you're struggling. Even if you decide to marry them, you're still struggling with, man, like, I still can't trust him, or I still can't let him touch me, or I still can't love him, or I still can't be 100%. It's because you're 100% everywhere else you've been. And so when we talk about that 20-year-old, 30-year-old woman, when we're trying to advise that, like, before you have the sex talk, before you have the love talk, have the purpose talk, have the vision talk, figure out what it is you really want, and make sure that if you are going to fall and have a baby, make sure it is with your husband, because you don't want them to have the regrets and the soul ties that you know it's going to have. Another name or word for soul ties is baggage, like luggage. And a lot of us carry and bring baggage with us into different relationships. And we are hitting the person we're with old baggage. It's one thing if I'm hitting you with a new bag that you bought me, that you brought to me while I'm here. But now I have all these other bags that I'm hitting you with because they belong to somebody else, but I'm trying to get rid of them. And I think that was a very, very good recommendation or advice from, one of our married couples to those that are not. Like that mileage that I think about my car. And I have a Mercedes. So I prefer to drive your truck. I prefer to drive your truck. I prefer to drive your car than drive mine, because the less mileage, the more valuable it is, the more well kept it is, the longer I get to keep it.
Let's pause, because that's your car. So you see the when it's yours, you value it. When it's somebody else's, so you don't give a hoot about my miles. You'll remember my miles to the ground.
Well, no, because if you cared also about yours,
and I say you can't drive it,
then no. Then I also have the same care. So there's a reason why I don't push and probe about driving your Monte Carlo, because I know how you feel about that.
Right.
Exactly. So, but you care less. You care less about this truck and this Buick. So we could drive that all day long. No. So the value again, which now brings me to the value. There's a value on my car that I put on it. There's a value on your Monte Carlo that you put on it. And then because you put that value on it, you don't let me devalue it. I don't let you devalue it. I mean, you and I will go back and forth on which car we're taking. If I don't want to drive mine, we're not going to drive it. If it's raining, I say, baby, please let's drive the Monte Carlo. You can look at me and tell me no.
It don't come
because
out
it don't come out in the rain.
It don't come out in the rain.
It don't come out in the snow. It don't come out in the cold.
80+ degrees.
Poor thing in the garage and never start, but it ain't coming out. Poor thing just sitting there taking up space.
It ain't taking up space. It's getting value. It's on the shelf, and he comes out at the right time. When he come out, turning all heads too. But if you've been out there all willy-nilly style, any which kind of way, you don't turn no heads when you come out like, oh, I hadn't seen that before. Oh, I hadn't seen that before. That's the...
So one of the other, and we're going to switch, one of the other myths, I guess, that we also want to talk about and encourage those who are still dating is there is still hope. And, there's this saying, this cliche that there are no more good men left, or there are no more good women left. Now, there may be good. No, you won't find great, because I got the greatest of the Mohicans left. Like you're my greatest. It's the last one. But there are many good women left. There are many good. Well, I mean, I was the last of yours. I understand. Yeah. But still,
I got blinders on now.
We don't want them. And I think that's another reason too why people just give up themselves, because they believe that, well, this is it anyway. I'm not going to find someone for me, so I might as well just have fun with it. So they look at dating and sex as, let's just have fun. It's almost like the same thing we tell an old geriatric person who, is on their last few years anyway. You know what? We're not going to tell you what not to eat. Eat whatever you want. Enjoy your life. Just enjoy life. Just do what you want to do. You only have a few years left. You want to just be happy. When you're younger, and in this sense, you want to be happy, but you don't want to be happy at the expense of what I'm going to call like what your future can look like, especially when it's also at the expense of the children now that you were going to have. Because then, and one thing we learned from the greatest book that we read is like what you do is not even going to affect your children. It actually is going to affect your children's children. And then you have these generational curses that now you're trying to break because of something that your forefathers did. Like we're still living out some things that our forefathers did that have passed on generation to generation. And I think beyond just living for ourselves, we should be living for our children. Like you and I have now been talking about family planning. So we've been living now for our children. And we're hoping that we get to live long enough to at least see them get to adulthood, at least. At least I will. I don't know.
You said a couple to it.
You already up there.
Yeah, already up there. Going back to a previous guest, and he said something, and I thought it was dope. it was James, and he said that if a person can't tell you the purpose of marriage, they shouldn't get married. I think the problem that we've encountered in the West is because one of the words you just said is the idea of being happy. And you want to be happy and blissful, right? And so you're looking for that person to make you happy. But the purpose of marriage isn't to make you happy, all right? The purpose of marriage, the true purpose of marriage, I believe, that you see more in the East, right, is that it stabilizes society. That's what marriage does. So it stabilizes society, gives honor to God. Those are the purposes of marriage. Nowhere in there, and to reproduce children. The goal, the man, he protects, he provides, he hunts, like he does that. And the woman's job is to prepare the next generation of hunters and providers and so forth and so on. That's primitive in some regards. But in the East, there's an understanding that culture is first. This is why in many cultures, marriages are arranged. They don't meet each other until the day of wedding. And then love develops later on. But for us, marriage has become about love. It's about how I feel and about how this person makes me feel. And if I'm not feeling good, then I'll exit and find me somebody else that makes me feel good. But if I'm interested, but it's difficult, especially depending on the dynamics of whatever the culture is, not just the national culture, but each race has a particular culture, right? And so when the emphasis is no longer about perpetuating the culture and giving honor to God, then at that point you've done away with the foundation. And what we're seeing now, I think, is just simply the outpouring of what happens when that happens, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And so as we continue or even close on this conversation of love and dating, I think one of the other things, and it's a myth, that both men and women struggle with, especially our women, is sex is love, or love is sex. And we're talking about sex a lot because for some reason sex is the driver for everything in society, in the world that we're living in. And there is this confusion or this misconception or this misperspective that if you love me, if you sex me, it's because you love me. Or if you love me, you'll have sex with me. So normally it'll be the man that say, if you love me, you'll have sex with me. And the women will say, because you had sex with me, you loved me.
All right. That's difficult. And I say it's hard because this goes back to us getting rid of whatever your particular worldview is, whatever religious value is, right? That has become the new religion. The biggest pushback now on any confines, I'll use that word in a negative sense really right here, that religion or the kingdom or any particular worldview that provides structure is because the new religion is a religion of sex. All the pushbacks in society is really about, I want to have sex when I want, with who I want, how I want it, doesn't matter. Man, woman, dog, cat, leopard. I don't want anyone telling me what I should do in the confines of my bed with whoever I want to do it with. And so I think that's the pushback. But it ties into the idea that, I want to get back to your question because I didn't think I answered it. When you talked about good men, good women. First of all, we got to define what is good. All right? And not only what is good, what qualifies me to be good, what qualifies me to get good, what qualifies me to deserve good, right? But if I don't know what good is, right? So when we say a good man or a good woman, because there has to be some baseline things that make us good, right?
As opposed to it being preferential.
Right, but what
may
makes
be good for you, may be good.
What makes a good
horrible
woman?
For me.
What makes a good man?
And it may be within the beholder, because you may be a good man to me, but someone else may pick you up and say, he ain't that great, he ain't that good of a man for me. You understand? And this is why you have good versus right. Like good and right is one of those things where, now if it's the right man, but then again, it's still, if he's the right man for me, it might be the right man for you.
But see, good and right, those terms are still relative. I think here, what is the standard? What do we want? And I think what happens is, listen, I like TV just as much as anyone else. I like social media just as much as anyone else, right? But we've created this fantasy of what this ideal man is. You know, for the woman, I call him the devil. He the triple sixes. He got 6 figures, he's 6 foot, and got a 6-pack. If you ask every woman what she wants, tall, dark, and handsome. Like, every woman is
that
describing...
was me at some point, and then I go, what?
Short, light, and... Well, he's still handsome, though.
So good looking.
But every woman is describing the same man. Mm-hmm. And the problem becomes every woman... One of you guys talked about the other day, I think it was Eddie, and he was, I'm sorry, one of the previous episodes, talking about your father being the 1%er, right? And so the idea is that every woman is shooting for the top 1% guy.
For the highest.
Well, it's only 1% of all men fit the description of what you're all saying. Mm-hmm. 6 figures, 6-pack, and 6 foot. And that don't even take into account whether or not he's already married. That don't take into account if he's gay or straight. Like, that don't take none of that into account. Mm-hmm. And so I think what happens is, and we see it on reality TV, we see it on a lot of these podcasts that we're watching. They're shooting for this top guy, right? And I think what happens is you miss really great men because you're shooting for this idea in your head. And now we're just gonna keep talking about guests now. Because the other guy says, you have to figure out, if this is the man I want, what does the man I want? If this is the woman that I want, I have to now decide or figure out, what is the woman that I'm looking for? What is she looking for? Because it's one thing for me to want that car. It's one thing for me to want that Benz or a Chanel bag or whatever. There's a price to pay to get that, right? And that's exclusive, right? This is why I don't think I've ever seen a Lamborghini ad on television. I don't think I've ever seen a Ferrari ad on television.
You're right.
Because that ain't his consumer.
I don't see no Louis Vuitton or nothing on television.
Because the people that buy that stuff ain't sitting home watching television. They making things happen, right? They ain't got to advertise. Everybody know what a Bentley is. Everybody know what a Lamborghini is. Everybody know what a Ferrari is. They ain't got to advertise their product.
Another thing that we can encourage women. You don't have to advertise yourself.
Clothes. Listen. We don't need to see another twerk video. We know what twerking is.
We need to see no
I don't
lube.
see nobody dropping like it's hot. Stop advertising your wares. And here's why. For a guy. And I think, and I know we're coming to a close there. For a guy, he will give you a lot of attention, right? You got this bad body and you short it on. He'll give you attention. He ain't gonna wife you up. And the problem becomes, I think, because they can get the attention. Again, men are judged. Men are judged based on the type of woman they can get. Women are judged based on the type of man they can keep. And just because you're getting these guys who can give you certain things, it's the reason you ain't keeping them. He ain't wifing you up, boo. So, I don't know. Stop showing your titties. I don't even know we're supposed to say that. I'm just saying that. I think for me, for any woman who's trying to decide whether or not a guy is being legit with her, right? Being straight up with her, she has to first understand, what does she want? What is she looking for? All right? And the two have to marry. What he says and what he does have to line up. That's when we talk about integrity, right? So what you say and what you do has to line up. But, and I've said this and back in my single days, I said, listen to what I say. Forget what I do. Listen to what I say. And I say that because I was a good guy. Like, I was a good guy. To all of them. I was a good guy. Like, I wasn't a bad dude. Mm-hmm. I wasn't gonna mistreat you. I wasn't gonna curse you. I was a good guy. But if I said we just kicking it, That's what we were. Now, I don't care how many times we went to dinner. I don't care how many laughs we had. To me, we were still kicking it. And I think a lot of times women mistake, oh, he said this, but he did this. What did he say? So I think it's important to listen to what he says. And more important, listen to what he doesn't say. A guy who's going to wife you is going to talk to you a certain kind of way. There are conversations that he's having, right? There are conversations that he's going to bring up. And then you'll know.
And I'm glad you're saying that. And I'm still going to anchor it in, number one, sex is not love.
Oh, no doubt.
So we hear sex and we hear sex, but we think love. We hear sex, but we think love. We hear sex, but we think love. So we're still not listening. You're hearing sex. He's telling you sex. He's telling you sex, but you're thinking love, 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 love. But he's telling you sex, and you're thinking love.
Listen,
and you're wondering that's
you
it.
know, this man ain't never been out on a date. Only time he swing by is 2 a.m. Come on.
I remember when you and I were dating, like earlier on, I was hearing you, but I wasn't hearing you. And then you started opening up about what you wanted and vision, and you started having what I was hearing was purpose for your own life. Forget me, purpose for your life. Then you started talking about purpose, about what you want for your family, what you want for your kids, and then all of a sudden my ears open, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. First of all, he sounds like he'd been listening to the greatest teacher ever lived, Dr. Miles Monroe.
Oh, I'm sorry, my fault.
There's no competing on this. Nah. Yes, and so that actually started exciting me. Now, granted, I'm in my years of age, and so I know what I want and what I don't want, but that is what I was after. I was after hearing that, and when I started hearing that, and then I started watching what you do and how you act, and I started saying, okay, so maybe he is serious. So then remember, you and I actually had a sex talk, and we said what we didn't want to do. We didn't want to have sex before we were married. We said that. Once we knew that that's what we want, we said we didn't want to do that. And I was glad that we were able to have that talk and agree, so that when we started falling, because we're both human. So when you started being weak one day, I needed to be strong. And when I was being weak one day, because it happens, you needed to be strong.
Resist all this.
But we had that conversation, and we were on the same page.
Here's the thing, though. But that takes a certain level of maturity.
It does.
Right?
It does.
You got to remember, she's ashamed to tell her age. I was close to...
me.
I'm not telling you, I'm telling mine.
Okay.
So...
No.
You didn't know the difference? Whatever. They see the gray hair. I was close to 50. Mm-hmm. And so there was a different level of maturity I had. Like at 20, I'm not having that talk. At 21, at 25, at 35, at 40, I wasn't having that talk. But something hit me at a certain age. And so for me, the idea of not having sex came up to me long before I met you. And it was only from the perspective that, man, I've done this a long time my way. And ain't none of it worked out. Let me get this guy's way of try, right? Because for me, I knew that I wanted marriage, right? But I also knew that I wanted God to be able to bless whatever I did. Mm-hmm. But I also recognized I can't operate outside of the confines of what God wants me to do.
I remember you telling me
and
that.
Then still asking him to bless it.
That was major for me.
And he's like, man, I can imagine God, this is probably crazy, watching people have sex. Like, man, look at them enjoying that thing I created, but man, they blowing it. They ain't doing it. They outside of it, and I can't really bless that thing, right? So for me, it was important for God to bless it. Two, the other thing is, and if you remember, and I'm lightweight upset right now because you're not wearing my necklace. I was already preparing for a wife. So I had went out, but I'm just going to tell the business now. So I went out, I got a ring. I said, man, this is what I'm going to do. Whenever I find my wife, I'm going to give her this ring. I had it ahead of time. You remember this?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So now, of course, I get this ring, that was forethought. Unfortunately, it was below her standards. So, so he's like, is this what you got?
Sorry, not sorry.
And so, I was still able to utilize that ring. I took the little diamond out of it and made a necklace. And actually, we took some of the other diamonds that were around it and put it in the real ring. But see, I had already prepared myself in my mind that when I found a wife, but I wasn't going to, I wasn't thinking that at 25, 30. But this is also the importance of just getting knowledge and information earlier, because you have to be able to change your mind, alter your mindset. And so, we probably met each other at the right time in our lives, right? Because you mentioned this before in the previous episode. And man, let me tell you something right now.
Tell me, baby.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to handle me. I'd have ruined you. I would have ruined you. That's just where I was. Wasn't a bad guy. I'd have put the business on you. They say you had you walking around in the daylight with a flashlight looking for me. But I matured. And I slowed down too. Can't keep up like I used to. I don't care what nobody tell you. Age set in. You like, man, I can't keep doing this. This wearing me out. I true. All right, come on.
Oh my goodness, honey, it's always so good when you join the conversation. And I'm so glad you joined the conversation, especially when we're wanting to encourage those that are still dating, young and old. It's not just youth we're talking about. There's still older people who are even divorced and still in the dating game. But we just wanted to encourage them with our story, with some of the gems and nuggets we've heard over the last couple of weeks. We hope that, if you haven't been watching the last few weeks of the Love and Marriage series, this is the perfect time to go back and watch it, because the couples who have been married for months and 20, 30 years and 6 years, they have provided some great advice for you that are wanting to get married. And hopefully when you listen to our story, you hear the one value that's going to work for you. And you want to give a word of encouragement?
No, we've had this conversation about dating and sex. Now, come here, boo. Come here, boo.
Cut!